Hello and welcome to episode 7 of season 14 of Sports Scene. I'll be your host, Carlo Jimenez, joined by Trace Tempesta and Courtney Wise. Guys, thanks for joining us here on this Wednesday after our first weekend of NCAA tournament play. 64 teams came to Indianapolis, 16 are still here. Guys, and one of those is our USC Trojans. Let's jump right into it. How far do we think the Trojans are going to go in this next weekend?
I think that USC will definitely beat Oregon on Sunday, and they will make it to the Elite Eight after beating Oregon. And so now if they make it that far, they have to go against Gonzaga, which is a very strong team. And so I think that, it won't be a cakewalk either. And so with the momentum that USC already has going into the tournament, it's a no-brainer that USC will go against Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. So,
I do not think it is a no-brainer at all. Not only do I think a matchup against Gonzaga would be near impossible, but unfortunately, I don't even think USC is going to make it to play Gonzaga. I think they're going to lose against Oregon in the Sweet 16, and my main reason why is because what we saw this weekend was USC's peak. Their performance against Kansas, I do not believe was repeatable. It was a phenomenal peak at that, but I believe it is unfortunately downhill from here.
Yeah, I can't agree at all. Trace, were you when USC last played Oregon? Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
You must have not watched the game.
No, I saw the game. Now,
are you sure? What happened? Can you want to replay?
USC won.
Score?
But let me contextualize.
They did by like 20,
happened.
Right? By like 20?
It was like 15 or so. Now, let me tell you this, Carlo. The matchup was on February 22nd. Oregon was not completely healthy, and I believe the 24-point performance from Taj Edey was not repeatable. So now, the thing with Oregon is I believe their experience and their rest in the first round makes them such a lethal team that USC isn't quite ready for. For starters, they're led by senior guard Chris Duarte, who has been phenomenal in this March Madness game. He dropped 23 points and only 2 turnovers against Iowa. He can lead them as a senior. He's a 6'9" guard, a reliable and experienced scorer. So I think we're going to see a fresh team. I think we're going to see a well-prepared team. And I think we're going to see a team with equal momentum to USC's.
I don't know about all that. I think, Oregon, when they played Iowa, they looked great. You know why? Because Iowa's defense is absolutely horrible. They had easy layups throughout the game. They're going all the way to the rim. And now you have to play a USC team who just held Kansas, coming off a game where they scored 93 to 51 points in a game, not in a half. Not like Kansas scored 53 points in the second half against Eastern Washington. We're talking 51 points in a game against USC. The Trojans, when you don't have size, they're dominant. You have to shoot well from outside the arc against USC. And that's why, guys, I might be crazy, but I'm taking the Trojans over the Bulldogs into the Final Four. I think Gonzaga is great.
Oh,
Hear me out.
Carlo.
Hear me out.
man.
Drew Timme is 6'10", all right? David McCormick is 6'11". How many points
Yeah.
David McCormick have? 5.
Against
5.
who?
That's how many fingers you have. 5. Against Evan Mobley, he had 5. 5 points. That's it. He was neutralized. He had 22 against Eastern Washington, 20 in the second half. USC's length forces you to shoot well from outside the arc, and I think the Trojans are destined for the Final Four, guys. They're a nightmare matchup.
It'd be one thing if Drew Timme was the only good player on Gonzaga, but come on. I mean, that's one of their 3 potential lottery picks. So, look, you could say that they might beat Oregon. I even would disagree with that. But to say they'd beat Gonzaga, man, you're going for it there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think here's the thing. The Trojans are a lengthy team. Jalen Suggs, you talk about some of these guys on Gonzaga. Jalen Suggs, he's a slasher. He gets to the rim. He can shoot the 3 ball, but it's not like he's a knockdown shooter. I'd be more concerned if I was USC about playing a Syracuse team with Joe Girard, who can shoot it from half court pulling up. But for the Trojans, they just have to get a hand up. Taj Edey has been terrific these last couple of games. Max Ogbonkpolo has been great on the defensive end. Length makes teams uncomfortable. Length takes you out of what you're used to doing. When a guy can be in your face and also 3 feet off of you. We saw that with Kansas. We saw that with Drake in the second half. The Trojans are playing their best defense. Defense carries. Maybe offense won't come game to game, but defense does. And they only need to score above 60 to win games. And I just think the Bulldogs, after watching that Kansas game, are praying for an Oregon win on Sunday night.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Carlos. I definitely don't think USC can beat Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. I don't see USC being in the Final Four. They have the defense, the elite defense, and a good offense. But Gonzaga you can't really beat an undefeated team like Gonzaga, because Gonzaga has a very elite defense, and they put the points up there that no one else has done. So,
unfortunately, guys, I don't even think we're going to see that matchup because I'm pretty convinced that Oregon is the team to do this. Now, let me tell you a couple of things. Carlo, you mentioned that the way to beat USC is shooting. So here's the thing. Here's Chris Duarte's shooting splits on the year. 53% from the field, 42% from three-point line, 80% from the free throw line. What does that tell you? That tells you he can score in a variety of ways. Second, it's not just him. Against Iowa in their last matchup, 4 players scored 17 points or more. So that tells you that if by the odd chance that one player is not going, they have other guys who can pick up the slack. I think we're looking at a well-balanced team in Oregon.
I wouldn't use Iowa stats. I mean, Iowa's defense, they could have played 5-on-3. They were so bad. That was the worst defense.
They were a 2 seed. Gosh, they weren't that bad.
They were a 2 seed because they were good at playing offense. Nobody plays defense on that team. That was atrocious. Listen, I think Oregon is a great offense when they can drive to the rim. But you're talking about guys who need to get to the rim to score the basketball. Besides Duarte, Richardson could get you a 3 here and there, but they don't have any true bigs. And Evan Mobley is averaging 3 blocks this tournament. He's been lights out for USC. I mean, nobody has been able to get inside the rim, inside the paint, and finish cleanly this year. It's been everything at the elbow. I just think the Trojans are way too good defensively. Oregon's going to be a cakewalk. I mean, Trace,
cakewalk.
We won 17-1 last time. We were up 17-1.
Yeah, that's a great early start in a sample size of 1 game. But what we're looking at is a well-rested team with equal momentum. This is a 7 and a 6 seed. It's not fair to say that USC had this tremendous advantage because, as a matter of fact, I think Oregon could take this game.
Yeah, if they shoot 65% from the 3-point line. That's the only way.
I'm not saying – now, look, USC had some pretty phenomenal stats against Kansas there that I don't think were repeatable. Isaiah Mobley went 4 or 5 from 3. That hasn't happened all year. Statistics like that and, gosh, some of the defense, I mean, it looked really good, but Kansas was also just missing wide open shots. So you cannot expect the same out of Oregon.
I mean, Kansas hits 5 or 6 more shots. That's up to 62 points. They win by 20 instead of 30. I don't think – I mean, USC outplayed them. They flat out outplayed him. Isaiah Mobley is playing his best basketball. He's finally found his role. He's found confidence. I think this is what people expected when he came to USC. And the Trojans are a nightmare matchup for the Zags, guys. Gonzaga hates height. They haven't played a team that's tall, and nobody's perfect. And the Zags are perfect, and perfection has to end, and it's going to end. It's going to end in the Elite Eight.
I think the Zags are perfect just the way they are, but I think that USC going into the Oregon game and hopefully beating Oregon on Sunday, and then going into the Gonzaga game, I think that it all comes down to if USC wants to win the national championship, and if they perform like how they played in the Kansas game. And so I think that setting the expectation high and like reshaping their mindset and continuing their momentum will help the Trojans out in the long run. And so, yeah.
It's definitely true that USC has momentum. I'm not going to deny the fact that they gave Kansas their biggest loss in March Madness history. I'm not going to deny the fact that guys were shooting above average and they were playing phenomenal ball. But what I'm saying is Oregon was doing the exact same thing. They just beat a 2 seed by 15 points. They're a 7 seed. They're hot. They got a bye in their first round because VCU had to cancel the game due to COVID forfeiture. So just like that, we're looking at a phenomenal Oregon team with the experience and the versatility to upset USC, and I believe that is going to happen.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it. Let's move on. Let's keep going. Next topic. This morning we had USC Pro Day. Again, there's no combine this year, so they're doing pro days at different schools, and USC had theirs. A lot of participants this year for the Trojans. Guys, who impressed the most? Who helped themselves out the most on Pro Day this morning?
I believe wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown helped himself the most at USC's Pro Day today. St. Brown, is seen as a wide receiver who can do a little bit of everything. And so during today's Pro Day, St. Brown put up 20 bench press reps, but he was shooting for 25, which 20, I believe, is an impressive number for a wide receiver. And so I believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown helped himself the most at USC's Pro Day. And so
I'm going to go with defensive tackle Jay Tufele here. He's a 6'3", 315 pounds defensive tackle, and I thought his numbers were phenomenal. The main thing that sticks out to me is the bench press reps. He put up 30 reps this morning, and just to put this number in context, this is more bench press reps than 3 first-round picks last year. Derek Brown, Austin Jackson, and Isaiah Wilson all went in the first round of last year's NFL draft. So the fact that he did more than that should indicate where I believe he could go in the draft.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting, Courtney. I want to ask you about something, but Amon-Ra said earlier this week on Media Day that a lot of teams questioned his speed and his strength when he was coming into the draft. And he's not a very big receiver. A lot of people have asked him. He said a lot of people have asked him about playing slot. Did Amon-Ra do enough today to prove he can play on the outside edges and that he isn't a slot receiver?
Yeah, I think he did a lot. I believe his goal, his not being a slot receiver, his vertical jump numbers were very high, close to the 40 inches mark, and so that beat his goal into coming up at 38 or 39 inches, and so only 7 wide receivers have posted a number better than that last year's combine, and so I believe that St. Brown has definitely proven himself to be a worthy competitor at USC's Pro Day today, as well as for the upcoming NFL draft. And so I think he might get drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. So it's been good.
I do think the one knock on Amon-Ra St. Brown's performance today was that he put up a 4.51 40-yard dash. Now, analyst Daniel Jeremiah mentioned how the average for wide receivers on the 40-yard dash is 4.52. So he was basically at average. Now, is that enough to say that he is a completely versatile and fully capable wide receiver in every single position? I think he was shooting for a better time in this stat. Now, this measures speed overall, and there are ways to overcome that, but I do think this is a negative side to his performance today.
Yeah, I think it's definitely tough. I always wonder, and Trace, maybe you can speak to this more, how much do scouts really take into account stuff like the 40-yard dash, stuff like how much bench press can you have? Because, like wide receivers, the only time you're running 40 yards straight is if you're running a Hail Mary. And how many do you run those a year? Maybe 3 or 4. So, how much do you think that really affects guys today? And how much is a pro day just a show versus actually a telltale of how guys will perform in the NFL?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think in comparison to the combine, the pro day is definitely more valuable to that because the combine, I think that's more for antics. Now, these metrics, I do believe they matter because this is the best way to measure the overall versatility of a wide receiver is we assume that the hands for everyone is relatively similar, but how many different positions can you put him in? Okay, if he doesn't have that speed, how do we overcompensate through different routes? Now, if a guy does have raw speed, like a John Ross or a Tyreek Hill, then that's probably their main feature. Now, if you don't have that, it's like, how do you overcome that? And I think that's the route that an average speed performance would have to take.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, as a wide receiver, he brings, a lot of versatility to the table with his ability to play on both on the outside and the inside slot. And so to highlight another strength of his, he is also a killer blocker. And so, as well as his excellent passing or pass catching abilities too. And so I think that St. Brown is going to go far in the going to go far in the NFL draft. And so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that pure strength is huge. I remember Michael Pittman was asked, like, what's the biggest difference between the NFL and college football? And he said the violence of the NFL and, like, how hard guys hit. And so when you have a receiver like Amon-Ra who's benching 20 pounds, I mean, you can take those hard hits, essentially. And I think that's going to be big for him, considering his small stature compared to other wide receivers in the NFL. Guys, but one guy who was out there at Pro Day today who is not getting drafted but is hoping to go first round next year was Kedon Slovis. And a lot of scouts who were at the Pro Day said Slovis looked really, really good. Considering a year, I think that was a down year for Kedon Slovis, and what was expected of him is how much should we take into account his Pro Day performance into spring ball for the Trojans?
I think it matters in the sense that we want to see him healthy, we want to see him confident, and that's all USC could ask for, right? Is they've seen the talent, they've seen what he can look like under his best circumstances. So if Kedon Slovis is healthy, that matters. But does it matter in terms of his draft stock? Does it matter in the sense that he was the showcase of this performance today? I'm going to say no, just because he didn't have any pressure on him. He was, there's no real defense on a pro day. So it was good to see for the USC club, but it's not like he was the standout performance here. I still think it was Jay Tufele, and a main reason for that is instead of just a strong guy who isn't very mobile, he also ran under 5 seconds at 4.97 in his 40-yard dash. So what I was impressed there is the versatility of being one of the strongest people in the draft, but also being able to move, and that's huge at the defensive tackle position.
Yeah, I think that is one metric where it's super overrated because Jay Tufele will probably never run 40 yards straight in his NFL career. His get off is probably big, but Jay Tufele's speed in a 40-yard dash, very surprised if he ever uses that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also think about this. If he has to do it, that means a running back probably got by the defense and he has to play catch up to get them. So even if that isn't one of the most impressive metrics, let's talk about a 30-inch vertical from him, which says a lot about your explosiveness and the overall speed that you can get up and swap balls. So ultimately what I saw from today was just a well-rounded performance from a guy who should definitely go in the first or second round.
Yeah, I mean, athleticism is important. Guys who have standout athletic numbers in the NFL, that's big. I mean, we saw DK Metcalf come out of nowhere, get picked up in the second round because of how ultra athletic he is. It's just, it's tough to put too much on it. You always want to be cautious because at the end of the day, it's how you play when the game's actually going, not when, there's no defender and you're just running. Courtney, anything you saw out of Amon-Ra that made you think, this guy should be a first-round pick, or do you think second-round projection is about right for him?
I think he definitely proved himself at the Pro Day today. I I think, scouts have definitely looked at him differently. His confidence, versatility, his athleticism, as well as his like ability to catch a ball, and and like he can do a little bit of everything. And so I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown has a potential of going first round. Rather than second round. And so I think that the numbers, it's all about a numbers game. And so like the numbers that he was putting up in today's pro day definitely showed out for him, and besides his 40-yard dash, but it definitely showed out for him. And I think that he can definitely go into the first round for the draft. So
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I think draft stock is a lot of times mentioned on who needs what. I think a lot puts on like, oh, where is this guy going to get drafted? But it depends on do teams need wide receivers? Are wide receivers plentiful? I think that's a big thing. That's part of it. Guys, let's move on. Let's get on to our final portion of the show. Trace, I know you have a big hot take you want to share with us.
Yeah, so after watching these early rounds of March Madness, I've realized that Loyola Chicago is going to make the national championship game. Not only are they going to win their region, and not only are they going to do it in a convincing manner, but I think they are also going to beat whoever comes from the region above them. And Loyola Chicago, the 8th seed, is going to be in the national championship game.
Yeah, I don't agree. Not at all. Not at all. I don't think they're going to beat Oregon State on Saturday.
I think they do.
Let me tell you why. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me tell you why Loyola Chicago could make the national championship game. 1, Sister Jean. Do I have to say more than that? I will, just in case. 2, they're 9th overall in KenPom's additional metric rankings. That's adjusted efficiency margin. That's talking about even though they didn't play a great regular season schedule, now that they're here, now that they've upset some 1 seeds, they're ready to go. And 3rd, they are 1st in the entire nation in adjusted defense. So we're talking about defense wins championships here. I'm going to say defense gets them to the national championship.
They're a great defensive team, but I think Oregon State's another matchup for them that's going to be tough. When you talk about Loyola Chicago, like what's the name that comes to mind, right? The big man Krutwig. He's the guy. They go as he goes at that Loyola team. Krutwig is going to have to face Roman Silva, who is 10 pounds heavier and 1 inch taller. And I guarantee you he does not see anyone who's 10 pounds heavier or 1 inch taller in the Mountain Valley Conference. I promise you that. And he's going to have to face Warith Alatishe, who is Pac-12 Tournament Player of the Year and can jump out of the gym, had 7 offensive rebounds against Oregon State earlier this year. Alatishe gets up there. I think those two are going to cause a lot of problems for Krutwig. If Loyola Chicago can get efficiency from other people, they might have a chance. But I really think Oregon State, those bigs downstairs, Silva has been great. He has set a career high with 16 in their opening round against Tennessee. And Alatishe has been too solid. I don't think they get out of this Sweet 16.
Now you say that there's going to be bigs. It's a matchup here. But Loyola Chicago just beat Illinois. So they just had to deal with 7-foot-tall Kofi Cockburn. And they just had to deal with the star performance that these guys brought. So Loyola Chicago is not only coming off of momentum, and they're not only coming off of beating a great big and a strong Illinois team, but now they are showcasing that this is a team that can make it to the championship game.
Yeah, I don't buy it either. I definitely think that, it's pretty confident that you're saying, Loyola Chicago will make it to the national championship. And I don't buy it because I can't see Loyola Chicago beating Oregon State at all. I see Oregon State beating Chicago, or Loyola Chicago, because Loyola Chicago here, they don't have enough style. They don't play slow. They turn it over, but they do have a very good defense. But what Oregon State has that Loyola Chicago doesn't have is their ability to make plays and stick it out. And so yeah, that's what I think.
I think defense is one of the most valuable characteristics you can have at this point because everyone has their strengths. And if Oregon State's is playmaking, well, a great way to disrupt playmaking is to be great at defense. And from the additional metrics that Ken Palm provides, there's no one better in the country at defense than Loyola Chicago. This is a team that's peaking at the right time. And I think a reason why I chose them in the national championship is because they have a very favorable bracket. They get to play 12 seed Oregon State. They're an 8 seed who has better momentum off beating a 1 seed. And then Syracuse could potentially disrupt Houston with that zone defense. So just like that, I think this region for Loyola Chicago's, it's there to take.
I think you got to throw the seeding out the window, Trace. I mean, seeding is great, but at this point, everyone's good. It doesn't matter what seeding you are. You're in the Sweet 16 for a reason. They beat a 1 seed, sure, but like, is the NCAA really bad at seeding, or are teams just really good? I don't know. I think let's say they beat Oregon State. Let's say somehow they shoot 95% from the field.
It won't take 95. It'll take a regular performance.
They squeak it out at the end, and then they got to take on Syracuse. That zone defense from Syracuse, which Loyola Chicago has not seen, one of the best zone defenses in the country, arguably the best, will disrupt Loyola Chicago a ton. It clogs up the middle. It makes shooters hard to get open looks on the outside. And the combination of Joe Girard alongside Buddy Boeheim, I mean, they're buckets. If you watch any highlights, they're shooting it from Steph Curry range, and it looks effortless. I mean, they're too good. They're too good.
Well, the problem is against this Loyola Chicago defense is you are going to have to pull up from Steph Curry range because they're not going to give you anything else. This
but
team
Syracuse can do that.
They're the best defense in the country.
That's what they do.
Syracuse is not as high ranked as Loyola Chicago. So I think that both teams are going to be able to disrupt. And I'm not even talking March Madness rankings. I'm talking defensive rankings. Loyola Chicago's the best at this. They have the best resume coming up to this simply by beating Illinois, a very valid 1 seed. They were the second most frequent picked to win it all. And look, this is a team peaking at the right time. They have the players to do it. They have the schemes to do it. And they can take on a Syracuse who's just a weaker version of Loyola Chicago.
I don't think Cuse is a weaker version. Go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, I don't think, Syracuse – I don't think, well, first of all, I don't think, Oregon State can beat Loyola Chicago. But if, hypothetically thinking, I don't think, Syracuse is a weaker version of Loyola Chicago because of how they play their defense and their offense. And they actually make plays. And yeah.
Yeah, I understand the potential threats with Syracuse here, but this is also speculating that they get past Houston. Houston's been one of the best shooting teams. I believe they've only lost 3 times on the year. So I understand that they have a winning resume, but Loyola Chicago has so many different ways to win by shutting down other teams' offenses that they're a matchup problem for everyone. So not only am I willing to say that they're willing to win their region, but I also think the region above them, it's either Oral Roberts, Arkansas, Villanova, and Baylor. Baylor is really the only team that doesn't have cracks in its armor. And that matchup, I think it's favorable for Loyola Chicago. This team, I mean, my goodness, I can't say enough about them. They are ready to go. They resemble March Madness. They have the identity. They have the icon in Sister Jean. And I'm not willing to bet against that.
Sister Jean is great. I love Sister Jean, but Sister Jean's not going to give you 20 points. That's just how, I mean, she's sitting in the sand. She might give you 20 claps, but she's not giving you 20 points. Listen, Oregon State and Syracuse are probably 2 of the hotter, better teams in the tournament right now. I would not want to face either of those. Seeding-wise, yes, that bracket looks well. But again, seedings mean nothing at this point. Everyone's good. Everyone's good at this point. It's how you're playing right now, and both those teams are playing very, very well. And then taking on a Baylor team, if they get out of that region, or a Villanova team, you're talking about some great head coaches in those 2 conferences who've seen teams like Loyola Chicago. I mean, Loyola Chicago, they had a cakewalk. They played the Mountain Valley Conference. But these, I just think there's more experienced, more talented teams out there. I doubt they make it all the way. I would be very surprised.
The head coach matchup is a valid point, except for the fact that Loyola's head coach, Porter Moser, is doing the same thing. Even though the conference doesn't have the names and the recognition, it's not like this is a one-time thing. Loyola Chicago has been this team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they turn into a recruiting hotspot just off the fact that they have their identities. They're turning guys like Krutwig into some of the best centers in the league, and they're here to stay. This is a playoff team. This is a longevity team, and this is a team that can beat you in more ways than one. But it starts with the defensive identity that they are the best in the country with.
Huh. That's pretty interesting. I don't think, Loyola Chicago will go any further, like into the Elite Eight or Final Four. And so I think that, their offense could definitely be better. But other than that, it all comes down to, who can make plays, who can turn it over, or who can become better at defense and offense. And so I definitely think that even if Loyola Chicago makes the national championship, I definitely think that they won't win it overall. And so.
Well, we'll end on that note. That's going to do it for us here on the Sports Scene. Thanks for tuning in. You can find us at Annenberg Media Sports on social media. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Sports Scene when we have our Final Four matchups. Thanks so much, and see you next week.